Hey sports fans, now I'm reluctant to do straight how-to videos because I feel like you guys and girls out there know just as much as I do about that stuff. But regardless, I do get one question all the time, and that is, Jeff, are you single? I'm just kidding, I never get that question. But anyway, I do get the question, what is your favorite scope for the money? And of course to that, I ask a question in response, and that is, well, what are you going to be using the scope for, and how much money do you have? One, I just believe you should pay for your optics, but two, it depends. If you want a do-all scope, I've got it here. I think it's the most versatile in the world, and it just came out, and there's a feature why it's the most versatile. It is EOTech's Vudu 1:10 by 28 millimeter illuminated reticle scope. You can do just about anything with it except the extremes. The extremes are, on one hand, long range shooting out to like a mile or beyond, and on the other end there's CQB. This scope is not the best for long range shooting because it only goes to 10 power, but from CQB to about 600 yards, it is tops. I'm going to tell you why. So for years, writers like me have conditioned people to only believe that really large objective scopes can gather light. While that's true to an extent, that's only if everything is equal. And as I learned at a young age while trying to play basketball, everything's not equal. If the scope was made into the same quality specs, all using top-notch glass and all coated with the same excellent coatings, all multiple layers, if that were true, yes, the larger objective would typically be lighter, but things aren't equal. And so this scope, I'm telling you, it's made with quality, with great Japanese glass, which is second only to some of the high-end European stuff. This thing, I've tested, I've hunted with it a ton. You just can't see much of a disadvantage unless you're in some crazy specific scenario, like for example, if you were leopard hunting, where that happens at dusk and or at night, you're not moving much because you're in a blind. Yes, in that situation, I'd buy a 56 millimeter Leupold or Smitten Bender, you know, for $5,000 and probably put that scope on it. But for everything else, you'd be surprised what you can do with the EOTech. And frankly, if you need a scope in the dead of night, you need a thermal scope or a flashlight, and once you get a flashlight, it doesn't matter. I'm just telling you, you'll be surprised how a smaller objective like a 28 millimeter, how functional it actually is. But that's not what makes this scope so versatile. Sure, that allows it to fit on an AR-15, but why would you put it on an AR-15? Because at 1 power, with the illuminated reticle turned on, it functions the exact same way as any red dot scope. Now EOTech, of course, the master at red dot scopes, with their holographic sight that was so prolific it was just called an EOTech. That meant their large square holographic red dot that the military used forever, that you see on video games. It's wonderful. It does have a huge limitation. Regardless of what people say, after about 150 yards, if your mantra is aim small, miss small, it's not that great. That's why EOTech responded, and some other companies responded, with a coupler that you put in front of the scope, and then it doubles that magnification. But there are some downsides to those couplers. One, anytime you have exposed lenses, they can catch reflections off light. If the sun isn't right, they can also get dust on there. It adds bulk. It adds 2 different optics that you have to mess with. Scopes like this that are illuminated 1 to 10 power are better in every way, I believe. But the deal with this scope, the reason that it's revolutionary, is its reticle system. Now, not long ago at all, before this scope came out, you kind of had to choose if you wanted a first focal plane or second focal plane. Typically for hunting, I've been a huge advocate of second focal planes, and here's why. In first focal plane scopes, the relationship between the reticle or the subtensions, the holdover points of your scope, and the target don't change. But they do change in relation to your eye or your perception. On the other hand, second focal plane scopes, the reticle changes in relation to the target, but it doesn't change in relation to your eye. Very confusing. I could spend all day on this, but I don't want to. I want to get back to why this EOTech is so versatile. That's because it's reticle. One, I already told you, it's illuminated, so you can use it for CQB, but mainly it's just an ingenious system. At 1 power, it has kind of the classic EOTech holographic reticle. A large glowing circle that you could quickly pull that gun up and not think about it. And then in the middle it has a glowing red dot. It's just so quick, it's perfect. However, as you turn the power up, that big reticle, that outside ring, vanishes. It pulls in, whoosh, and goes past your head. Then the secondary, or that inner reticle, starts to come into view. That now what you thought was just a line of the scope reticle, you can see the numbers, the holdover points, the wind drift numbers. And so now you have the best of both worlds. At long range, when you're up to 10 power, you can see that reticle to use it to shoot long range, but back at 1 power, that's back out of your view and it goes back to that big reticle. You just have to see it and use it. To me, it's just a game changer, and that's why the scope is so badass. A couple other things since I'm on the scope. One, it's a 34 millimeter tube that does transmit more light, but you do have to get special rings for it that are 34 millimeter. Now it's not so bad because Leupold makes them, Tally, most of your major ring makers make them, so no big deal. I love the rheostat on this thing. That's the dimmer or for the illuminated reticle. It has 3 buttons that are rubber coated, very easy to push. One's on and off, 2 is brighter, this one near you is brighter, and this one over here is dimmer. Very easy. They're responsive to the touch, and when you turn it off and then turn it on again, it comes on wherever you last set it. Also, it does have a shut-off system where if it's motionless for a set amount of time, it turns off, save your battery. Wonderful system. Second are the adjustments, and I've tested them. They are repeatable and precise. Typically, I hate target turrets like this because they can just get turned. You're riding in a truck, you're moving, whatever. But this one, you have to pull out and then you can move, but when you push down just like that, it's locked. All in all, this is the scope that I have on AR-15s like this. I use them for hunting guns, for hog hunting. I've even got one on my Browning Bar MK3. This is my primary 308 hunting gun for deer, hogs, everything. On 1 power, it's a CQB scope. If I'm following up a wounded hog or deer or whatever, at nighttime, it's just wonderful, quick and easy. But at 10 power, I can do anything I want to do with it out to about 600 yards. But people ask me, they say, Jeff, well, hell, you're in the industry. Yep, that's true. But I also know if I weren't in the industry, I'm so serious about hunting and shooting that I guarantee you I would still pay top dollar for scopes. The good thing about this EOTech and it being made from Japan is that it's still a third less than the cost of comparable European scopes, and most of those Europeans, the Swaros, don't have this awesome reticle system. So 1,800 bucks. You know, if I had the money, I would have just about all of my guns, my dangerous game rifles, most of my deer hunting guns, most of my ARs would have these scopes, but they won't give me a ton of them for free, and I'm not rich either. So I have 2 of them. I love them. I wish I had more. I do think it's worth the $1,800, but that's for you to decide. That's EOTech's Vudu 1 to 10 power 28 millimeter illuminated reticle. They make 3 different reticles for it. I like the first focal plane for the reasons I just said. I'm Jeff Johnston. I'm going shooting.